Okay, so instead of continuing from where we stopped last class, I would like to start from the beginning, mainly because this is the first video you are going to have recorded, and I think it would be nice to have an account from the top, right, of everything we have been doing here. Just to let you know, keep in mind I have two screens here, though, so that's why I keep changing all the time in case you don't feel comfortable with my changing all the time like this. Okay, so here let's take a look at the foreword, the one we have read so far, right? So remember, just the bold type letters are the ones that are interesting for us. Okay, so forward. Please spare Mockingbird an introduction. As a reader, I loathe introductions. To novels, I associate introductions with long gone authors and works that are being brought back into print after decades of internment. Remember that internment is burial, right? Although Mockingbird will be 33 this year, remember 33 by the time the foreword was published, so meaning 1993. 1993, 2003, 2013. So Mockingbird has more than 50 years by now, right? So it's much older than this. Although Mockingbird will be 33 this year, it has never been out of print and I'm still alive, although very quiet. Introductions inhibit pleasure, they kill the joy of anticipation, they frustrate curiosity. Because remember, I think the point is, let's imagine I made an introduction, a foreword, without any spoilers. But I may make it in a way that you will know, for example, that the book is extremely sad, or that the book is hilarious, or that the book is ironic. So in my foreword, I don't say anything about the plot, okay? But I say, even though this book was much criticized by its politically incorrect language, this book is important because of that and that and that and that. So remember, imagine if I made an introduction like that. The idea is we don't have spoilers just for the plot, but we may also have spoilers, and this is, I think, is pretty interesting. We also may have spoilers for the mood of the book. I think that's maybe this is a bigger spoiler than anything else. Because sometimes you're reading a book and the book says something and you find it very offensive, but then you keep on reading and you realize that actually the book is a satire. The book is making fun of characters like that. Or sometimes a book is going, has the first part that is going on very smoothly, and then you think, wow, this is a very pleasant book. And when you get to later on in the book, the mood changes completely, and you discover that it's actually a very strong book, and the experience of reading is very traumatic. What do I mean by that? I think examples of movies are very interesting. And for that, I'm very sorry, but I'll have to give you a spoiler, and it will be a spoiler in those two senses I told you. A spoiler of the plot and a spoiler of the movie. Of the mood. There is a very interesting movie called Rec. It's a Spanish movie, REC, Rec, Rec. That's the name of the movie. And it's interesting because It's a documentary, apparently. Apparently, it is a documentary about firefighters in maybe in Barcelona. I don't remember, but it's a documentary about firefighters. So, as any other documentary, you don't have anything spectacular, emotional, or anything. You're going to follow the life of the firefighters. So the reporter has a cameraman, and then she speaks to the camera, and then she starts interviewing the firefighters. They go to the fire department, and the idea of the documentary is you're going to find out a little bit more about the routine of a firefighter. For example, when you're not fighting fire, what do you do? Do you play cards? Where do you eat? Do you have the time to sleep? How do things happen? That's the idea of the documentary. Okay, so you are watching the documentary like that, and they receive a call, and the reporter is very excited because not only she'll have the chance of following and reporting and documenting their everyday life, because remember, the everyday life of a firefighter uh, won't won't be always doing very exciting things. There are a lot of boring moments, right? So the reporter gets very excited because not only she'll be able to document their, let's say, boring lives, but also the exciting part. So she gets in the truck with the firefighters, and they get to a place. Apparently there was an accident with this old lady, you know and apparently somebody was hurt. The old lady is out of control or something like that, and they the person was hurt, and they needed the fire department there, right? So they enter there. And by the way, apparently the old lady attacked somebody, and then she passed out. When they get to the place, again, documenting everything, the camera is shaking. Remember, this is a feature of of this new kind of cinema, mainly when we talk about the end of the 20th century and the 21st century. You don't have the camera perfectly still, and in that case, this idea fits perfectly well because it's a documentary, and the guy is carrying the camera and things like that. Sometimes the sound breaks off, and you know sometimes the image is not good. Sometimes, I don't know, the guy changes hand using the camera, so you have this feeling of documentary. But then when you get there, the lady that apparently had passed out or even died, she stands up again, and to make a long story short, it's a zombie movie. But it's interesting because up to, I don't know, the middle of the movie, no, I wouldn't say the middle, but up to 20-25 minutes of the movie, you may think it's a documentary. Of course, if you go to the cinema, to the movie theater, you will see there. But the idea is, in a proper condition, you're going to have a very big surprise. Why am I telling you this? Because actually my brother had this experience. He was just searching the web, surfing the web, and then I think it in YouTube he found this thing, and he had nothing to do. He was in in a it's a place there, where we make barbecue in my mother's house, and then he was there by himself. All the lights were off, and he got interested in that. He really believed it was a documentary, and in the middle he found out it was a zombie movie. And the way the documentary treated that was very interesting, because it really felt like there were zombies and etc. Okay, now think about it. You cannot watch this movie anymore without knowing that. So you're going to watch it from the beginning, knowing that's a zombie movie, and that first part, the documentary part, is actually being used to establish mood, you know. And I gave you a mood spoiler. That's the idea. And I think this is the idea here as well. Okay. um, I was thinking, now I didn't give you any spoiler regarding the plot of the movie, but it's possible to get a mood spoiler as well. So, for example, if I'm going to read Crime and Punishment, and I know that Crime and Punishment is known all over the world because it portrays, and then I say what it portrays. I don't want to say that now, first, because I want to save time, and second, because if one day you want to read Crime and Punishment, I think you should. But imagine I this book, is so famous. It is so famous. You already know what people think about it, what kind of conclusions people take from the book. You are not going to have a completely first-hand, experience with the book. And then if you had a forward, I think the idea would be like that. You are already kind. So the first idea, I think, or the first reason we can give against forwards is this one, right? Spoilers regarding the plot. I don't know about you, but I don't read the back of the book, because when I'm about to buy the book, I just know the author and I buy the book and then I start reading, because I'm sure I'm going to get some kind of spoilers. I'm sure I'm going to get some kind of spoilers regarding the plot or regarding the mood. That's the first disadvantage of a forward. The second disadvantage would be people are already telling you what do you have to get from the book. For example, I hate books that give you before it starts, like, the word of a specialist. So this specialist, sometimes in 20, 30 pages, is going to tell you what the book is about. What should you pay attention to when you're reading the book? Why is this book so important? Why is this book so good, right? I don't like that, because it's as if I'm going to have a date with a person and somebody tells me, look, when you are talking to that person, please pay attention to this, that, and that, and talk to that person about this, that, and that, and that. Imagine you have a date. I don't know, it's your first date with your boyfriend, for example, and somebody gives you a list of topics that you should discuss with your boyfriend. It doesn't make any sense, right? So with a book, I think our relation to the book should be the same. First of all, it should be just you and the book, and you are there. And you are going to reach your own conclusions, and you are going to get disappointed, or you're going to get excited. But then you may think, oh no, but maybe I won't be able to realize certain features of the book. That's okay. That's okay. Later on, you will find out, no, actually, the person was not offensive. Actually, what he meant was this and that and that. The same thing with the book. Oh, actually, I hadn't gotten this part very well. Now that I'm reading it for the second time, or now after finish reading the book, somebody told me. Now I can understand. I can understand the book better, right? So keep in mind, having a real contact, having a real experience with a book means that you are open to surprises, you are open to frustration, you are open to misunderstandings, you are open to, I don't know, any kind of experience. And I think a forward would break that as well. The third reason, when the forward comes from the author, is sometimes, and it may seem a little bit incredible what I'm going to say, but sometimes authors don't understand completely their books. Of course, an author should be aware, completely aware of what they are doing. But, sometimes the guy's writing, and then there is this part, and he doesn't know why, but he thinks, no, this can't happen. No, it's not like this. And then he changes it, because he's respecting the reality. He's respecting the character that is in front of him, and the character is basically looking at him and saying, look, it should, this thing you are thinking about creating in my story, this thing shouldn't happen. and they obey. A good author will obey the story, but it doesn't mean that they understand what is going on. So, in many, many, many occasions, the philosophical, the sociological, the theoretical vision of the author will be very, uh, I don't know, I wouldn't say simplified, but, it's possible that the author will say a lot of shitty things, but the book is great. Okay, so we shouldn't confuse one with the other. One nice example regarding that is David Lynch. David Lynch is an excellent movie director. He's American, but if you watch his interview, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. So it's much better to pay attention to his books than paying attention to the guy. Actually, Dalton Trevisan was like that. When people not wanted, because Dalton Trevisan, if I'm not wrong, is still alive. He must be like 100 years old, but he is still alive, if I'm not wrong. I think I should check that, but I'm pretty sure, of course, Dalton Trevisan hasn't died. But I want to know how old he is. Dalton Trevisan, he's 95 years old. He's 95 years old. This guy is going to die very soon. Okay. So Dr. Trevisan used to say that, when people wanted to interview him, to ask him about his life, about, he would say, "I'm not important. Why are you focusing on me? There is nothing here. Read my books if you are interested in what I do." And I think in many occasions, that doesn't hold true. In many occasions, the authors are genius in all of their areas, but in other occasions, then the book, we should pay attention just to the book, right? Let me give you one more example. Hemingway, all right? Hemingway loved to write about strong characters, you know. So, for example, one of his most famous books is called The Old Man and the Sea. It's about a man that is very simple, but he's very, of course, he's old, the old man in the sea. He's very simple, but he's very strong, and he has a great soul, a very strong soul, all right? He knows exactly what to do with his life. It's simple, but he knows exactly what to do with his life. Even though his life is very hard, even though, things don't go well to the old man, he knows what to do. Uh, so Hemingway created this great guy that never has spiritual problems. Again, life hits the old man very hard, right? But he doesn't have spiritual problems. He suffers what he has to suffer. He does what he has to do, and that's what happens. And we can see that Hemingway admired that kind of personality a lot. And then you may think, wow, Hemingway was a very wise man, right? But look, I remember when I discovered what I'm going to tell you, it was a great shock to me. Hemingway killed himself, and I don't know what do you think, but it's very hard. It was very hard for me to fit. How is it possible that he created a character like the old man, and then at a certain point of his life he killed himself? And again, we may have several theories to try to explain what happened to Hemingway, but those will be theories in psychology, in history, biography, and etc. That's okay. But if we're interested in literature, then what is important is The Old Man and the Sea. That's what matters, Hemingway doesn't matter. I promise it will be the last example, but I think this example is very nice. There is a European movie director called Lars von Trier, right? Lars von Trier. And I don't know. He has some incredible movies. One of them is called Dogville. You should watch. I don't know, Dancer in the Dark. Melancholy. He has many many interesting movies. But when you hear the guy talk, you know, uh, I don't know. And then apparently he mistook some things in the other movies and people misunderstood him, and that's why his old movies were very good. Why am I telling you this? Because his last three releases, it seems that finally he is showing in his movies what he really is. His three last movies, I think they're called in Portuguese they're called Nymphomaniac. I think it's Nymphomaniac, one and two, and there's a third one called The House That Jack Built, and the three of them are a load of intellectual crap. Finally, Lars von Trier is showing his soul in his movies, and his movies are not worth watching anymore. At least those three last ones, right? So, if let's imagine this is a theory, right? I really don't know, but let's imagine he couldn't express himself totally well in his movies. He was just following, the mood of the movie, and he completed those movies, but he couldn't, show his entire soul in the other movies previous to those three I mentioned. So my answer to that is good. He couldn't express himself because those movies were excellent. Now these three last movies are crappy. So again, it's not because now I think Lars von Trier and his new three movies are, shitty, that his whole work is shitty. So we have this idea of a work, a piece of art that is independent from the author. Okay, this is a very important idea. The piece of art being independent from the author. So when Harper Lee says, "Oh, look, I'm not going to give you a forward," he is, at least in his view, there making us a favor, because he is letting his book speak, and that's his idea here, right? Let my book speak for itself. All right, my book doesn't need anybody speaking for it. Okay. Okay, so I think finally we can go back there after this small digression of 20 minutes. Okay, so please spare Mockingbird an introduction. As a reader, I loathe introduction to novels. I associate introductions to long-gone authors and works that are being brought back into print after decades of interment. Interment. Although Mockingbird will be 33 this year, it has never been out of print, and I'm still alive, although very quiet. Introductions inhibit pleasure, they kill the joy of anticipation, they frustrate curiosity. We're talking about the spoilers. The only good thing about introduction is that in some cases they delay the dose to come. Remember that he's being ironic. This is the first joke he is telling, or this is his first irony here, right? He's basically saying for some books, it's good to have an introduction because just like a very bad medicine, it will be delayed. At least you will spend some time of your life reading the introduction, and you won't have, to suffer through the pages of the book. Continuing, Mockingbird still says what it has to say. It has managed to survive the years without preamble. That is another way to say forward in this case. Harper Lee, 12 February 1993. Okay, chapter 1. When he was nearly 13, my brother Jim got his arm badly broken at the elbow. When it cured, right? And Jim's fear of never being able to play football were assuaged, he was seldom self-conscious about his injury. Okay, so the idea, remember here, assuage, that is to relieve. So he was very afraid. He had very strong fears, but apparently his elbow healed, and his fears, just calmed down, just calmed down. So they were assuaged. Then he rarely thought about that. He was rarely conscious about his problem, okay, about his injury. Because remember, he could have been self-conscious because he was left with a little consequence of the broken elbow. We're going to read about that now. His left arm was somewhat shorter than his right. That was the consequence, right? When he stood, the past of stand, right? Or walked, the back of his hand was at right angles to his body, his thumb parallel to his thigh. Right angle is an angle like this, okay? Like this, right angle, okay? So I remember I tried to show you before, but let's see if I can show now that the camera is bigger here. Let's see if it will. No, it won't be. I won't be able to show my. Nah, sorry. No. Okay. But his hand would be. Where's the camera? Where's the camera? His hand would be like this. Sorry, didn't help at all. So his hand will be like this. Jesus, I can't get the correct angle of the camera. Okay, but try to imagine, all right? Usually when you are standing up, the idea is your thumb will be in the right angle in comparison to your thigh, okay? If you stay like this. Now, if your hand is a little bit tilted outward, not inward in the direction to your body, but outward, then the thumb will be parallel to your thigh, and the hand will be in the right angle, right? It's not a huge deficiency, right? It's not, because of that, he won't be able to do it. It's a small one, but if you pay attention, he would be a little bit strange. Walked, the back of his hand was at right angles to his body, his thumb parallel to his thigh. He couldn't have cared less. Remember, this is an expression in English, when mainly when you're being unpolite, you look at a person, the person says, "Oh, you have I have won the writing competition," and say, "I couldn't care less." Or, of course, this would be very, very offensive because the person is excited going to you and talking about something nice, and you do something like that. But I think that this expression would be perfect when you got something like a person looks at you and say, let's imagine you have your hair cut and your hair now is short, right? And the person looks at you and said, you look much prettier with your hair long. And the person says, at least that's my opinion, And then I think that's the right moment to look at the person and say, I couldn't care less, about what you think. So he couldn't care less so long as, as long as he could pass and punt. Remember, when you punt, you hold the ball with your hands, you drop the ball, and before the ball hits the ground, you kick it, okay? Apparently, it's something important in football, not soccer, football, American football. When you lose the ball, if you kick the ball very far, then it's good for your team. But I don't understand anything about American football, and it's enough for us to know that Jam loved to play football, and one of the things that you have to do when you're playing football. You have to pass, so you get the ball here and you pass the ball, uh, and you have to punt. And he could do both of the things, so he was okay. When enough years had gone by to enable us to look back on them, we sometimes discussed the events leading to his accident. Remember, I think we've already discussed this idea. The idea is you need some kind of distance in order to talk about some things. I think I didn't give this example in our classes, but I've got some nice examples, at least one nice example. Let's imagine a guy loves this girl, and I don't know, they break up. Okay? Uh, it will take some time, mainly for a guy. Girls prefer to share, but guys are, more closed. So I think it will take the guy a long time to be able to look back on that breakup and analyze it. Okay, so he will need some safe distance. Let's put it this way. I don't. My guess is that's not the case here. Maybe it is, but maybe you just continue going on with your life and never look back, and you need some, as I said, some distance, some I don't know, a neutral position to look back on things like that. Okay, so when enough years had gone by to enable us to look back on them, we sometimes discussed the events leading to his accident. I maintain that Ewells, remember this is how we read that phonetical transcript you have there, Ewells, okay, it started it all. But Jim, who was 4 years my senior, he was 4 years older than me, you can see there, said it started long before that. Remember, we don't know so far who the Ewells are, right? Because as I commented in class, we got the conversation in the middle. He said it began the summer Dill came to us, when Dill first gave us the idea of making Boo Radley come out. And again, we are in the dark. Come out of where? Is Boo a dangerous guy? Was Boo an isolated guy? Was he a freak? How is it possible? What is the relation between Boo coming out and Jim having his elbow broken? I said if he wanted to take a broad view of things, it really began with just a sec here. Let me see, what can you see? He said, okay, you can see it there. I said if he wanted to take a broad view of the thing, it really began with Andrew Jackson. Remember, Andrew Jackson is a historical figure in the United States. If General Jackson hadn't run the creeks up the creek, Simon Finch would never have paddled up the Alabama. And where would we be if he hadn't? Remember that the reference here is to Andrew Jackson expelling the Indians, winning a war, and then expelling the Indians from Alabama, all right? And because of that, Americans were able to go there and colonize the place, take the land and etc. And of course, he's being ironic again, but because it's a heavy loaded passage, heavily loaded, I mean, with culture, it's kind of hard. But I think the comparison I made in class was, let's imagine, I don't know, we're discussing what caused your accident, and you tell me, oh, I think it was when it was because I went to the bar and I had some drinks, and then I say, no, 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 I think it was because your father bought you a car. If your father hadn't bought you a car, then you wouldn't have had any car in the first place to crash. And then a third guy would look, oh, really? You want to take that far? Okay, so I have an explanation for the story. You know whose fault was it? It was Pedro Álvares Cabral's fault. You know, because if Pedro Álvares Cabral hadn't, come to Brazil, probably Brazil would be a different place, and then we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have any streets or any car to crash. You know, so that's the kind of irony he is trying to pull here. Well, I believe this is the part we studied, right? We have studied so far. Next class we'll continue from here. Thank you very much.